Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Tornado IDS WTD61. This is a currently Tier 7 battle rating 11.0 strike aircraft in the German Air Force's tech tree. This vehicle currently comes in a pack that includes 2,500 Golden Eagles, 20 days of premium time, and of course the WTD61, and costs $69.99 USD. That said, in this video, I'll be going over everything that you need to know about this premium Tornado variant, including its stats, how it plays, its strengths and weaknesses. I'll give some scores in several key areas, and then I'll give my final recommendation on if I feel that this vehicle is worth purchasing or not. With that said, if you like this kind of video, please consider subscribing, but without further ado, let's get into it. Now to start, I'll place the stat card here on the side of the screen. Important things to note are its top speed, turn time, and its armament. Now for how it plays. In short, this is a premium version of the Tornado IDS that's already in-game as an event vehicle, just without its anti-ship missiles. If you're not familiar with that vehicle, the WTD61 is basically a very large heavy strike aircraft that is less maneuverable and has lower performance compared to most enemies that it will face. Further, it has just two missiles that, even though they are AIM-9Ls, are largely insufficient at this BR, basically just due to the lack of total missiles that you can carry. If nothing else, the WTD61 can carry a fairly large bomb load of up to 12 1,000-pound bombs, but that's literally all that it can carry, as rockets and smart ordnance are not currently available on this aircraft, and I doubt they ever will be. Because of this, you can typically carry around 30 minutes of fuel and 12,000 pounds of bombs to make a run at a base, largely due to how fast this thing burns fuel, as a full load of bombs can typically destroy just over 2 bases, with 5 bombs typically being just enough to be able to destroy a single base. But of course, you have to be somewhat lucky in order to actually be able to get to an enemy base in the first place, as most planes are, again, much more capable in terms of anti-air than you are, even when in a down tier, at least to a point. Just doing some quick math, I've gotten to destroy or damage at least one enemy base in around 2/3 of the matches that I tried this in, though with a much lower survival rate after the fact. And again, this is just the matches that I went in with a bomb load, not counting the ones that I did not go in with a bomb load. And the thing is, this also largely depends on the map that you're trying to actually bomb on, like for example Rocky Pillars in Battle for Vietnam having much lower rates of survivability, at least in my experience, than with other aircraft, and that's even just getting to the base in the first place. Coming back from the base, that's another thing entirely and doesn't really happen all too often. Now this is not necessarily the WTD61's fault, as it isn't slow by any means. Rather, it's because of the much better equipped enemies that it will typically fight. If you want to use this as a fighter, it can do decently well, though you'll have to act more or less as a scavenger, going for enemies that are distracted by other aircraft, as the maneuverability on the WTD61 is not going to be as good as with most other planes. Further, having two AIM-9Ls basically means that you will likely have at least one miss, at least if you're going against enemies that are somewhat aware, which means that you'll only have one missile left in order to actually go after targets, so you'll need to make it count. Otherwise, you have up to 56 large caliber countermeasures, but these are only equipable via pods under the wings, which means that you must remember to create a custom loadout with them. If nothing else, you also have two 27mm cannons that can do good damage against anything that it hits, which at least makes this vehicle somewhat versatile in that regard. Otherwise, in Air RB at least, the WTD61 typically has a rough going of it. You can get used to it for sure, but it'll never be the top dog in any of its matches, at least insofar as capability is concerned and insofar as it stays where it currently is. That's not to say that you can't be the #1 person in your team, because you certainly can be. I've had well over 2,000 plus score matches with this vehicle and winning matches like that, but it's typically not going to be the most capable vehicle. Now, just to give you an idea, I averaged just around 1,000 score per match in Air RB when selecting my last 12 matches with this plane, which is about the equivalent of a kill plus an assist or a base destruction plus 1 or 2 ground units destroyed. That average includes my 2,000 plus score matches and the ones where I died before doing anything. Now for ground RB, the situation is about as meh. While it can carry up to 12 1,000-pound bombs, that's literally all it can carry, meaning that you have no versatility, and that, technologically speaking, this plane is far behind the times at this BR, forcing it to get closer than most other aircraft in a close air support role. To add insult to injury, as of right now, almost all bomb loadouts cost the same amount of spawn points to use, whether it's 5 or 12 bombs, meaning that unless you create an artificially weak custom loadout with something like 1, 2, or 3 bombs, you'll likely have to spend well over 700 spawn points in order to use an aircraft that can only use dumb bombs. If nothing else, it at least has a ballistics computer, good cannons, and the ability to use parachute bombs, which means that you can be accurate with your bombs and destroy enemy tanks with your guns as well. While I have had some success with this aircraft in a close air support role, it largely depends on how lucky I am in that I can either spawn into this aircraft early in a match, or that I can have an enemy that is simply neglecting to field SPAA. If you can manage one of those or both, you'll be able to at least get a few kills with this vehicle in ground RB, but typically nothing more. The problem with this vehicle is that, much like in air RB, it can strike quickly, but good luck beyond that. It just has a survivability issue after landing the first hit against the enemy, as it is a large, not so maneuverable target that has to get close to enemies in both air RB and ground RB in order to be effective with only a limited amount of countermeasures. Unfortunately for you, your enemies do not need to get nearly as close to you in order to take you down. Now, with all that said, let's get into its strengths and weaknesses. And first, for its strengths. This vehicle has relatively good performance and acceleration. Second, it has good 27mm cannons that can destroy both ground and air targets. Third, though it doesn't have many countermeasures, at least they are large and thus a bit more effective than standard countermeasures. Fourth, it has a good total ordnance weight of up to 12,000 pounds of bombs. Fifth, you do have access to a ballistics computer for your ground ordnance. Sixth, this features 2 pilots, which means that pilot sniping won't matter as much, not that you really have to fear that around this BR anyways. Beyond this, it features thrust reversal as well. For its 8th strength, you can use radar to improve gun aiming against air targets. For its 9th strength, you also have variable sweep wings that can allow you to take full advantage of both low and high speed characteristics of your plane. And finally, you have premium RP and SL bonuses. Now for its weaknesses. The WTD61 can only carry 2 AIM-9Ls, of which are fairly easy to trick with flares. Second, this has mediocre turning performance at this BR, largely due to the size and weight of this vehicle. Third, it lacks long-range missiles for BVR combat, which nearly all of your enemies have. Fourth, it has no smart ordnance, meaning that you will have to get close in order to attack bases and targets in ground battles. Fifth, this also lacks the ability to carry rockets, even dumb rockets, which really sucks. For its 6th weakness, it doesn't have a large amount of countermeasures, and the ones that it does have to be added via a loadout, as they do not come standard on this vehicle. For its 7th weakness, while it can carry a good amount of ordnance when considering total weight, in that it can carry up to 12 1,000 pound bombs, it can literally only carry 1,000 pound bombs. It has no rockets, ATGMs, other bomb sizes, or anything. It's just 1,000 pound bombs. And finally, this is a very large target, which will make gun and missile kills against it much easier. Now, with all that being said, let's get into how I score this vehicle. And first, for dogfighting / air RB, I give this a 3.5 out of 10. This vehicle can indeed be used to kill enemy aircraft, and I've actually gotten a decent amount of kills with it, but it has almost no advantages over other aircraft at and around its current BR, or even is comparable to them. Sure, it has AIM-9Ls, but it has only 2 of them, while other aircraft are substantially more maneuverable than the IDS, and can get into killing position far more easily than this plane can. Further, while it can carry literally many tons of bombs in order to destroy bases in air RB, that sort of quick strike ability without dying is pretty much extinct at this BR, as most planes can and will kill you with either all-aspect IR missiles or BVR missiles while you're on your way to the enemy base, or if you're lucky, just after you drop your bombs. Don't get me wrong, you can still earn over 1,000 score in a match with this plane with some level of consistency, whether via air kills, base kills, or a combination of the two, but it won't be all the time, and its ability to do so is substandard, as it is, again, a bit worse at almost everything compared to the planes that it will face in a typical match, which, in my experience, has been an up tier usually. Even down tiers aren't very favorable for the WTD61, but at least they help. This is not a bad plane per se, but it just faces much more capable planes, at least insofar as War Thunder is concerned. I've got no doubt that this plane is much better in real life and for the missions that it was actually made to fly in, but unfortunately, like we see with so many other vehicles, in War Thunder, this just has to face so many different vehicles and different situations that it never would have faced in real life. Now, with that said, for close air support, I give this a 4 out of 10. The only reason why it even scores this highly is due to its relatively decent payload. At a BR where smart ordnance is basically required, the IDS WTD61 has none. Sure, if you can't sneak up on the enemy team, you can get a few kills with your 1,000-pound bombs. But again, that's all you have, 1,000-pound bombs. There is no variety with ordnance on this aircraft outside of regular bombs and parachute bombs. This absolutely kills any versatility that this aircraft could have, and will also give it no variety in how it plays, which many people might end up finding boring. This is a huge, obvious aircraft that will need to get close to the enemy before considering dropping its bombs, and by that time, it'll likely be blown out of the sky by any SPAA at this BR. Oh, and at least currently, you either have to use ground vehicles that are at a lower BR than the WTD61, or a higher BR than it, being that Germany has a non-existent lineup at 11.0 BR. Now with that said, overall, I give this a 3.75 out of 10. You might look at the score, of which is likely the lowest score that I've given thus far for a premium vehicle, and say that it's a bit harsh. Honestly, I might be a bit generous in giving the IDS WTD61 a 3.75 out of 10. In every game mode, other aircraft have this vehicle beat, whether it's in terms of CAS, performance, air-to-air, or anything. The Tornado IDS WTD61 is just not competitive. Unlike the British Tornado F3 that at least has some charm to it and can defend itself, the IDS WTD61 can barely accomplish this task, and it can only do so sometimes. Even the F5E of the American Air Tech Tree, a plane that is essentially only a fighter aircraft and nothing else, has a far superior close air support loadout compared to the WTD61 in that it can carry up to 4 AGM-65Bs, while also having arguably superior overall performance, all while sitting at a lower BR, again, at least currently. This is pretty much the story of the IDS WTD61. It just can't do much as it has less than planes that are supposed to be less than it. It's just a substandard vehicle at 11.0 BR. Even if it gets to a 10.7 BR, I can really only see this thing being a 4.75 or maybe a 5.25 out of 10 overall. It'll get you some scores sometimes, but don't expect it to survive the match. I mean, again, like I said, it's not like I have not done well with this aircraft in some matches. I certainly have. There have been some matches where I've destroyed 3-4 bases, gotten 2 kills, an assist, all these things, like around 2,500, 3,000 points. I've had those matches. They just come much more rarely with this aircraft than with many other aircraft, and the floor certainly seems to be much lower with the Tornado IDS WTD61 than with other aircraft. Now with that said, do I recommend purchasing this plane? No, no, and no. I cannot recommend this aircraft, at least not currently, unless it was either able to carry more missiles, which I doubt it will ever be able to do due to its historical loadouts, or better anti-ground weapons, while simultaneously seeing a BR decrease. I will likely never speak fondly of this aircraft. The MiG-21 Lazar M, while not perfect, is a much better pickup for the German Air Tech Tree and can even perform CAS, albeit with lower amounts of total ordnance, although certainly with much greater variety. In all, the story of the WTD61 is one of insufficiency. It has an insufficient amount of missiles, insufficient variety in terms of anti-ground ordnance, insufficient turning performance, and so much more. If all you're doing is flying this vehicle around in a test drive, it can certainly feel good, but once you get out there in an actual match, you'll have to pray to whatever deity that you worship in order to simply hope to make it to the end of the match without dying. Flying this vehicle at best qualifies as time spent in purgatory, and at worst, in hell. The WTD61 is a strong no from me, and I wish mercy upon all of those that have already purchased this flying abomination. Again, at least as it currently sits in War Thunder. But with that being said, thanks so much for watching. Please let me know what you guys think about this vehicle in the comments below. I am deeply interested. This is one of the longest reviews I've ever done because I had a lot to say about this aircraft. Some good, mostly bad. But again, thanks so much, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.